Alright, so we're going to be looking at aliasing objects references as they relate to lists. So when variables refer to the same object, we have an alias. Variables referring to the same object. What does that look like in code? Let's take a look. So here we have a variable called hours equal to 40. When we use the function id, it gives us the memory address of that variable. So as you can see here, the first address here, this corresponds to hours, and it has a particular number there. Then we have a variable called days, assigned a value of 5. When we print the ID location of days, it gives us this memory value here. As you can see, it's different from this one at the top. The last four digits of this value are 1920, then you have 3040. Alright, so the memory addresses are different right now. But if we were to assign the variables to each other, so let's do that example here. So let's do this. Let's add this code here. Now, if you take a look at this here, I've created a list with three string data types, days of the week, and assigned it to a variable called A. Then we're going to declare B and assign it to A. Now, when we use the is operator, it's basically asking us to check if they're identical. And they're identical if they have the same address. So that's how the identity comes in, okay? So if we run this, you see it prints true because A is B in terms of identity, okay? And when we print A, we see that A and B look the same, all right? Now, let's look at this line here. When we made an adjustment to the list by using the append function, and this shows that lists are objects because we have methods that modify the data, and that's what an object is. If we look at that definition, an object is simply a collection of data and methods that act on those data. That means lists are objects because lists have methods that modify their data. Okay, so lists are objects because of that. So when we look here, we've made a change to the B list and added or appended the data item Thursday. But when we print A, we didn't print B. We notice that we see the change being applied to the A list. So, so the idea here is that A has been modified even though we applied the append change to B, because that's what aliasing does. When we make a change to an aliased variable, it changes whatever it was associated with. So we made a change to B, but A also got changed, and that's why it prints Thursday. So let's go ahead and just prove that by creating a function that's going to modify a list and demonstrate how the referencing also works. Alright, so it's important to understand that the association of a variable with an object is called a reference. So when did we do that here? We created a reference when we associated this list here with this variable, okay? So A references this list here. So that would be an example of a reference. And it goes on to say that in our example, we have two references to the same object. Two references to the same object, when did we do that? We did that here. When we said B equal A, we created two references to the same object that has this list here. And that's why the memory address is the same if we were to actually print the IDs for this. So let's go ahead and print the IDs for this and let me show you. So if I was to print ID A and print ID of B, alright, so notice here, so after it prints that A is B, meaning that it gives true over here, we see that the addresses that we have printed out for A and B are identical. Okay, so they have the same identity. So notice that there. And this explains that aliasing has now occurred. So it's a reference when an object is associated with a variable, but it's aliasing that comes into the picture when there's more than one reference. When an object has more than one reference. So an object has two references, three references, then it's aliased. All right, and that's from ThinkPython. You can find it explained in ThinkPython from Green Tree Press. You can read more about that there. All right, so we've looked at, and we're going to look at an example of the append method on list data in a function. So here we have the function created here called the days list. You would make your own function. Remember, you're going to avoid plagiarism and not try to use this example that others will obviously be seeing as well. So we'll take in the list as an argument here, and it will append a new string item called Saturday. We're going to print weekdays and print regular days, and you'll notice that they both contain the same information. As you see here, they contain Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday in both lists. So weekdays contains Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and regular days also contains Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, even though we only changed or made an append to weekdays and not regular days. So the aliasing affected that other list, which was not appended. So we appended weekdays, but regular days also got affected. So of course, you'll create your own function types to demonstrate this idea and build out your code further. These are just limited examples to give you a basic idea of how you would approach this discussion question.